You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. As organizations scale agile delivery beyond a single team, the need for coordination becomes unavoidable. Multiple teams working on related products or systems must align on outcomes, manage dependencies, and integrate increments without undermining local autonomy. Two common patterns address this challenge: Scrum of Scrums and the Team of Teams model. Each offers a way to synchronize delivery while respecting agile principles of decentralization and empowerment. Scrum of Scrums provides a lightweight forum to surface cross-team risks and dependencies. The Team of Teams model, by contrast, emphasizes broader alignment on mission and synchronized rhythms that extend beyond any single forum. On the exam, scaling coordination scenarios often test whether candidates can distinguish between these models and apply them to context. The agile response usually emphasizes tailoring coordination to the degree of coupling and the level of shared mission required. Scrum of Scrums basics center on a lightweight, representative forum. Instead of every team member attending, designated representatives meet on a regular cadence to share updates relevant to other teams. The agenda is concise: what was done, what will be done, and what blockers affect others. Crucially, it is not a status reporting session, but a space to coordinate dependencies, identify integration risks, and create a backlog of cross-team actions. For example, if one team plans a change to an API, the forum ensures others consuming that API are aware and can adjust. On the exam, Scrum of Scrums scenarios often test whether candidates can identify its scope and limitations. The agile response usually emphasizes that this forum provides coordination without creating a second management layer, preserving agility while reducing surprises. The Team of Teams model extends coordination beyond a single representative meeting to a broader network aligned on mission-level outcomes. It emphasizes not just managing dependencies, but synchronizing on shared goals, metrics, and cadences. For example, a set of teams delivering an integrated digital platform may operate under a Team of Teams structure, aligning on outcomes such as reduce onboarding time by 30% across all services. This model provides structure for higher interdependence, creating shared rhythms that bind teams around systemic objectives. On the exam, Team of Teams scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize when stronger, mission-level coordination is needed. The agile response usually emphasizes that this model fits contexts where integration is more complex and alignment must be broader than tactical dependency management. Selection cues clarify when to use each pattern. Scrum of Scrums works well when coupling between teams is moderate and interfaces are relatively clear. It provides just enough coordination to surface risks and align dependencies without overburdening teams. The Team of Teams model is better suited when interdependence is high, outcomes require joint ownership, and integration is frequent or complex. For example, teams delivering independent modules may only need Scrum of Scrums, while teams developing interconnected features for a regulated product may require Team of Teams. On the exam, selection queue scenarios often test whether candidates can match the model to context. The agile response usually emphasizes proportionality. Choose the lightest model that sustains coordination without unnecessary ceremony. Coordinating objectives in either model prioritize delivering integrated increments, ensuring predictable flow across boundaries, and providing rapid decision paths for shared risks. Coordination is not about reporting for its own sake, but about ensuring that value is delivered end-to-end without bottlenecks. For instance, integrating increments across services requires shared quality standards and visible dependencies. Predictability matters, because stakeholders need confidence not only in one team but in the whole system. On the exam, objective scenarios often test whether candidates understand that coordination serves delivery, not bureaucracy. The agile response usually emphasizes integration, predictability, and shared decision-making. Coordination exists to accelerate outcomes, not to satisfy ceremonial obligations. A cross-team definition of done ensures that increments leaving team boundaries meet shared standards of quality, integration, security, and evidence. Without this, teams may declare work complete but hand off increments that others cannot consume. For example, if one team treats done as code complete but another expects tested deployments, integration delays occur. A shared definition of done ensures that handoffs are reliable and increments integrate smoothly. On the exam, cross-team DoD scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize its role in coordination. The agile response usually emphasizes consistency. When every team produces increments at the same quality bar, coordination becomes about integration rather than rework. Shared done standards prevent silos from undermining system flow. Dependency visibility creates a shared map of upstream and downstream relationships, third-party constraints, and sequencing assumptions. Without it, teams make local plans that clash when integrated. For instance, if one team assumes data will be ready in Sprint 2, while the upstream provider plans Sprint 4, schedules diverge. Visibility boards or digital maps prevent such surprises. They also highlight where dependencies require negotiation, escalation, or redesign. On the exam, dependency scenarios often test whether candidates can connect visibility to predictability. The agile response usually emphasizes surfacing dependencies openly. Coordination improves when relationships are mapped, expectations are explicit, and assumptions are tested early rather than left to chance. Cadence design aligns planning, review, and integration events across teams, ensuring they meet at predictable touchpoints while retaining autonomy in local cycles. For example, teams may operate on 2-week sprints, but synchronize monthly for joint reviews and planning. Without such alignment, integration may occur haphazardly, with some teams racing ahead while others lag. Cadence ensures that coordination is structured without forcing uniformity. On the exam, cadence scenarios often test whether candidates can balance local autonomy with system alignment. The agile response usually emphasizes predictable rhythms that enable collaboration without mandating identical cycles. Cadence alignment builds trust by providing stakeholders and teams with clear moments to converge. Integration strategy defines how and how often the system is assembled into a working whole. Options include continuous integration, daily builds, or scheduled system demos. The choice depends on technical architecture and risk tolerance. Continuous integration provides the fastest feedback, but requires strong automation, while scheduled builds may be necessary in more complex environments. For example, teams working on a shared platform might run daily builds to surface integration failures early. On the exam, integration strategy scenarios often test whether candidates recognize the importance of frequent system-level feedback. The agile response usually emphasizes integrating early and often, reducing the chance of last-minute surprises. Integration is the ultimate test of coordination, exposing whether collaboration produces coherent value. Shared outcome metrics give multiple teams common signals of system health. Instead of tracking only local throughput, metrics such as lead time to integrated value, escaped cross-team defects, or reliability of commitments reveal whether collaboration works. For example, if cross-team defects rise, it signals that integration practices need strengthening. Shared metrics discourage local optimization that undermines the whole. On the exam, metric scenarios often test whether candidates can distinguish between team-level and system-level measures. The agile response usually emphasizes outcome metrics that reflect the health of the entire network. Collaboration thrives when success is defined collectively, not individually. Shared signals keep teams aligned to outcomes rather than competing for vanity performance. Role clarity prevents coordination forums from drifting into ambiguity. Assigning facilitators, integration leads, or platform owners ensures that responsibilities are explicit without creating a parallel management layer. For example, a Scrum of Scrums facilitator guides sessions, while integration leads ensure technical alignment. Without clear roles, forums may devolve into status meetings or lose accountability for follow-up actions. On the exam, role clarity scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize the importance of defining responsibilities. The agile response usually emphasizes lightweight but explicit role assignment. Coordination roles enable collaboration without replacing self-management, ensuring that tasks are owned and actions are tracked effectively. Decision protocols specify what escalates to the network level versus what remains local. Without such clarity, teams either over-escalate trivial matters or under-escalate critical conflicts, leading to divergence. For example, backlog prioritization may remain local, but architectural standards affecting integration may escalate. Decision protocols preserve speed while preventing fragmentation. On the exam, protocol scenarios often test whether candidates can separate decisions by scope. The agile response usually emphasizes explicit rules for escalation. By defining boundaries, teams avoid churn and ensure that coordination bodies focus only on decisions with system-level impact. Decision discipline at scale sustains both autonomy and alignment. Information accessibility ensures that roadmaps, backlogs, interfaces, and decision logs are visible across teams. Without transparency, teams operate with partial context, leading to surprises and mistrust. For instance, if roadmap changes are hidden, dependent teams may invest in obsolete features. Open information prevents such misalignment and builds trust. On the exam, accessibility scenarios often test whether candidates can connect transparency to collaboration. The agile response usually emphasizes making information universally available. Visibility sustains alignment, ensuring that teams coordinate proactively rather than reactively. Shared access is a cornerstone of scaled agility, replacing silos with transparency. Vendor and partner alignment extends scaling practices beyond internal teams. External contributors must participate in the same rhythms, demos, and evidence expectations, or integration shocks occur. For example, a vendor delivering an API must align on cadence for integration testing and adopt the same quality standards. Without this alignment, surprises surface late, undermining flow. On the exam, vendor alignment scenarios often test whether candidates can extend coordination practices externally. The agile response usually emphasizes including vendors in rhythms and agreements. Scaling agility does not stop at organizational boundaries. It includes every contributor to the product ecosystem. Anti-pattern awareness protects forums from losing their purpose. Status theater where meetings devolve into reporting rather than coordination erodes value. Report-up dynamics reintroduce hierarchy, while hidden point-to-point deals bypass shared agreements and create fragility. For example, if two teams privately adjust integration schedules, others are left in the dark, undermining coordination. On the exam, anti-pattern scenarios often test whether candidates can identify dysfunction in scaling forums. The agile response usually emphasizes vigilance against these traps. Coordination practices must serve integration, not ceremony. By avoiding anti-patterns, scaling forums remain lean, focused, and trustworthy. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Implementing a Scrum of Scrums involves keeping the ceremony lean, predictable, and focused. Representatives from each team meet on a cadence to share 3 essentials: what was done, what will be done, and what might block others. This forum should generate a backlog of cross-team actions with clear owners, ensuring issues raised do not vanish into thin air. For example, if one team reports a planned change to a shared database schema, another can immediately highlight its impact, and an action item is created to synchronize. Without such clarity, the Scrum of Scrums risks devolving into a redundant status meeting. On the exam, implementation scenarios often test whether candidates understand that value lies in surfacing cross-team dependencies and risks. The agile response usually emphasizes disciplined brevity and visible follow-through, keeping the forum outcome-focused rather than ceremonial. The team of teams model requires a broader structure, aligning multiple squads around outcome-driven plans and synchronized rhythms. Implementation creates shared intent at the mission level, review points that show integrated progress, and a collective risk board that links strategy to execution. For example, teams developing different services for a customer platform may align around a quarterly mission like reduce onboarding time by 30%, with synchronized reviews assessing progress toward that outcome. Risks are logged not per team but across the mission, showing interdependencies. On the exam, team of teams scenarios often test whether candidates recognize its suitability for high interdependence. The agile response usually emphasizes outcome alignment, integrated planning, and system-level risk visibility. This model is less about tactical dependency tracking and more about binding teams around shared missions. Interface contracts are critical to scaling coordination because they preserve compatibility while enabling independence. These contracts specify APIs, data schemas, and service levels that allow teams to evolve systems in parallel without constant negotiation. For instance, if two teams agree on a service contract, each can work at its own cadence, confident that integration will succeed. Automated contract tests strengthen this by providing early warnings when changes break agreements. On the exam, interface scenarios often test whether candidates can connect technical discipline to organizational agility. The agile response usually emphasizes contract-first thinking. By making expectations explicit and verifiable, teams reduce hidden dependencies and ensure that scaling does not produce fragile integration points that derail progress. Early integration spikes probe the riskiest assumptions before commitments lock in brittle designs. These spikes involve building minimal prototypes or conducting performance tests to expose issues early. For example, two teams integrating on a shared authentication service may run a spike to test load handling before scaling development. Without spikes, assumptions harden into architectures that fail late, creating costly rework. On the exam, spike scenarios often test whether candidates can identify their role in risk reduction. The agile response usually emphasizes that early testing of cross-team assumptions accelerates learning and protects flow. Integration spikes embody the principle of failing fast at small scale, reducing the risk of large-scale surprises when systems come together. Synchronization artifacts such as shared roadmaps, dependency boards, and environment calendars give teams a common frame of reference. Roadmaps show intent at the mission level, dependency boards visualize where teams rely on each other, and calendars align on scarce resources like test environments. For example, a dependency board may reveal that two features both require a data migration, guiding sequencing. Without artifacts, coordination relies on memory and chance, leading to clashes and surprises. On the exam, artifact scenarios often test whether candidates understand their value and transparency. The agile response usually emphasizes lightweight but visible artifacts. Synchronization tools reduce uncertainty, aligning independent teams around shared context without forcing uniformity. Platform and enablement teams support scaling by providing shared capabilities while preserving product team autonomy. These teams deliver services such as CI/CD pipelines, observability dashboards, or security guardrails that reduce duplication and increase consistency. For example, rather than each team building its own deployment pipeline, an enablement team provides a standardized system that product teams configure to their needs. The danger lies in these teams becoming command and control bottlenecks. On the exam, platform scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize their role in enabling independence. The agile response usually emphasizes enable, don't own. Platform teams accelerate delivery by reducing overhead, not by dictating how product teams work. Their value lies in shared infrastructure that enhances autonomy across the network. Risk management at the network level requires identifying risks that affect multiple teams and addressing them collectively. A mission-level risk board categorizes such risks, sets joint mitigations, and defines escalation paths. For example, If all teams rely on a third-party provider's API, that risk must be visible and jointly managed. Without shared risk management, each team assumes others will handle the problem, and systemic exposure persists. On the exam, scaling risk scenarios often test whether candidates can differentiate between team-level and network-level risks. The agile response usually emphasizes collective ownership of shared risks. Effective scaling means acknowledging that some exposures cannot be mitigated locally. They require systemic visibility and coordinated action. Remote-friendly coordination ensures scaling practices succeed even across distributed geographies. Asynchronous updates, automated integration checks, and concise live touchpoints provide system awareness without overwhelming schedules. For example, teams may post integration status updates to a shared channel daily, supplementing them with automated reports from build pipelines. Monthly live reviews then focus on resolving risks, not exchanging status. Without these adaptations, distributed scaling forums either exclude participants or waste time. On the exam, remote scaling scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize practices that maintain inclusivity. The agile response usually emphasizes intentional design of remote rhythms. Distributed scaling is viable when information flows continuously, transparently, and inclusively across time zones and tools. Governance in scaling contexts must be right-sized. Heavy stage gates slow delivery and reintroduce waterfall patterns. Instead, governance should rely on incremental evidence, such as working integrated slices, security checks, or user feedback. For example, leadership may require quarterly demonstrations of integrated value rather than stacks of documents. This evidence-driven approach ensures accountability without crushing agility. On the exam, governance scenarios often test whether candidates can balance oversight with responsiveness. The agile response usually emphasizes proportionate governance, rigorous where risk is high, lightweight where outcomes are validated continuously. Governance should enable learning and trust, not act as a barrier. Right sizing ensures agility persists even under scrutiny. Conflict resolution protocols prevent priority clashes and resource contention from undermining collaboration. Transparent trade-off decisions anchored in shared outcomes help teams resolve disputes quickly. For example, if two teams require the same test environment, the protocol might prioritize based on customer value or risk exposure. Without clear processes, conflicts fester, slowing delivery and eroding trust. On the exam, conflict resolution scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize the need for structured agreements. The agile response usually emphasizes fairness, transparency, and outcome focus. Protocols ensure that coordination forums address issues constructively, preventing hidden negotiations or power struggles that fragment alignment. Metrics review and scaling contexts must focus on trend and distribution, not simplistic targets. For example, measuring average lead time across teams may hide that some outliers cause customer pain. Distribution reveals whether system performance is consistent. Trend analysis shows whether changes are improving collaboration. Simplistic targets encourage local optimization teams improve their numbers while the system stagnates. On the exam, metric scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize system-wide signals. The agile response usually emphasizes using metrics to understand real behavior, not to enforce quotas. System health is best seen through holistic signals that reveal collaboration quality and integration reliability, not just isolated team performance. Continuous improvement applies to coordination itself, not just delivery. Meta-retrospectives across teams evaluate whether forums, artifacts, and cadences reduce delay and rework. Practices that add noise are retired, while those that improve flow are amplified. For example, if dependency boards fall into disuse, they may be replaced by automated reports. Without reflection, scaling practices ossify into rituals that no longer add value. On the exam, meta-retrospective scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize that scaling systems also require improvement. The agile response usually emphasizes continuous pruning and adaptation. Coordination succeeds when it evolves as much as the products it supports, ensuring that forums remain lean, effective, and context-appropriate. Scaling in or out adapts patterns as complexity changes. As dependencies grow, more teams may join the coordination forum. As coupling decreases, forums may merge or dissolve. For example, if teams decouple services successfully, the Scrum of Scrums may reduce frequency or disband entirely. Without this flexibility, scaling structures persist unnecessarily, wasting energy. On the exam, scaling adjustment scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize when to scale forums proportionally. The agile response usually emphasizes matching structure to context. Coordination is not static. It must expand or contract with interdependence. Right sizing prevents both under-coordination and bureaucratic overhead. Success criteria confirm whether scaling practices deliver value. Forums and structures succeed when they reduce time to integrated value, improve reliability of commitments, and strengthen stakeholder confidence. Attendance alone is not success. For example, if Scrum of Scrums meetings occur faithfully, but cross-team defects continue to rise, coordination is failing. Success is measured in system outcomes, not in ceremony adherence. On the exam, success criteria scenarios often test whether candidates can distinguish real impact from ritual. The agile response usually emphasizes evidence of improved delivery, not just compliance. Scaling practices earn their keep when they accelerate integration, reduce surprises, and increase trust. In conclusion, Scrum of Scrums and Team of Teams represent complementary scaling patterns. Scrum of Scrums provides a lightweight forum for moderate coupling, while Team of Teams aligns highly interdependent squads around mission outcomes. Both rely on shared definitions, dependency visibility, integration strategies, and system-level metrics. Their success depends on right-sized governance, transparent conflict resolution, and continuous improvement of coordination itself. On the exam, candidates will be tested on their ability to match scaling models to context. In practice, organizations succeed when coordination emphasizes shared outcomes, early integration, and flexible governance, enabling multiple teams to deliver coherent value without sacrificing agility. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.